Hi, Robin. Thank you so much for joining us and contributing to our Safe Cities project here in Atlanta.
Hi, Jenna.
Can you tell me a little bit more about Zack's journey with his addiction?
First of all, he was a really bright kid, and he went to private school. He was popular. He had a lot of friends. He had a girlfriend. His teachers if they were here, would tell you he was not always the easiest kid in the classroom, but he was lively, but had a brilliant mind.
What are some things that you experienced with Zack while he was in active addiction?
I mean, he literally just turned into a different kid. I mean, he was lazy and didn't want to do anything except play guitar and play video games. And that was not who he had been before. I mean, he always liked those things. I mean, he always played tons of guitar, but I mean, he was also a student and played sports and did other things, but all those things were off the table. He started skipping school, which was unheard of, and all those things combined, I mean, it was very easy for me. I mean, I could tell just looking at him, to be honest, that he was different. Just.
Can you tell us about the day that you lost Zack?
Yeah, what happened was after he relapsed in December 2010, he went into a really big decline for about 6 weeks. And then I went up and took him back. I was going to put him back in the halfway house, but they wouldn't take him back. So we're kind of trying to debate what to do. And my in-laws, who live in a suburb of Atlanta, said, why don't you just bring him down here and he can stay with us and while we just figure out what we're going to do next. So he went down there and he was living with them, no car, and my father-in-law was driving him back and forth to work, and he met some really great guys in AA down there. And on the night of April 30th, he came home from work. He talked to my in-laws for a while and they went to bed. At 11:01, he called his sponsor and talked to his sponsor till 11:31. And at 11:32, he called the girl in Tennessee that he had relapsed with. And at 11:33, he called the heroin dealers in Atlanta, got in the car, drove up to Atlanta to what's called the English Avenue area of Atlanta. They call it the Bluff, which is really has been for years the heroin capital of the Southeast. And he bought some drugs, and the next morning my in-laws called me and said he's gone. He took the car. I started calling him, and and I didn't get anything back from him, so I thought that I knew he was either in jail or worse, and so I just waited, and at 3 o'clock my in-laws called me and said that they had found his body in the back seat of their car, and he overdosed on heroin.
Did you ever, in the back of your mind, think that that was something that was going to happen?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Although, to be honest, you always worry about that, but I always thought he was going to make it. So I knew that he was trying, and I knew he didn't want that life, and so I thought he would make it. I did. So while you worry about that and you think about it, I don't think I really expected it. And I will tell you this, because I've said this many times, that when you worry about it and you think how bad it's going to feel when if that happens, it's not even close.
And you always want to be as hopeful as you can, have the highest expectations you can for them because you believe in them and love them. So what were some things, after you lost him, how were you feeling about everything?
After he died, what was interesting was the following weekend after Zack died, there was an article in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution about 3 kids in Milton, Georgia, which is the suburb of Atlanta, like a northern suburb, that had all died of heroin. And this wasn't, in 2011, this wasn't getting the media that it's getting today. And you felt kind of alone. Georgia Overdose Prevention is it's a grassroots group of people that came together out of our own personal losses with the mission of trying to get a law passed in the state of Georgia, which was called the Good Samaritan Law at the time, and is ultimately the Georgia 911 Medical Amnesty and Expanded Naloxone law. A lot of people hear about us through the grapevine now. At the beginning, we did some events and people would call, but now we probably get between 5 and 10 emails a week of people either asking us to speak or asking us for naloxone. We also get, believe it or not, a lot of emails from law enforcement saying, how do we get it? How do we set up a program? I had a mother one time say to me, well, how's everybody going to find out about this? And I said, you're going to tell them, because I can't. I mean, I'm doing all I can do, really. So I need everybody else to spread the message so that people know that there's hope.
Absolutely. What would you say to someone watching your video, whether they're in active addiction themselves, whether they're a loved one of someone who is? What would you say to someone watching this?
People ask me a lot. I know a lot of parents who have lost their children, and there's a lot of guilt. And I never really had a lot of guilt. I was more mad at my son than I was mad at myself. So people ask me a lot, what would you have done differently? And I think what I would tell people, and what I do tell people, is all I ever said to Zack was stop using, stop using, stop using. You've got to stop using. And I wish that I knew the number one biggest thing is never, ever use alone. And the reason is because if you use alone, there's no one to call 911, and there's no one to administer naloxone. A lot of people, when they relapse, are consumed with shame, and they use alone because they're so afraid that somebody's going to know. They don't want anybody to know. They go in the bathroom, they go in the car, they use by themselves, and they die. I don't know that if I told Zack that, it would have saved him. I don't know that he would have listened. There are a lot of other things he didn't listen when I talked to him about. But it would be something that I would feel like at least I said it, at least I told him. And I think that it's a really hard conversation for a parent to have, or for a family member or any loved one to have with somebody that they love, because you just want them to stop using. But as I said, I'm not getting any second chances with Zack, so I hope that everybody else gets second chances.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jenna.